What is up, everyone? Welcome into the Fight HQ preview for UFC Vegas 75, which goes down tomorrow night there inside the UFC Apex. Of course, main card, I believe it's 7 p.m. Eastern time is the main card. 9 p.m. is your start for the main card there on ESPN, of course, headlined by Cannonier and Marvin Vettori. So we look forward to check this fight card out with you. Of course, as always, I am joined by my guy, Pete Rogers Jr. What's going on, Pete?
What's up, bro? What's going on? What's going on, everybody? Interesting card, and hopefully we can take it down with our team and our analysis this week.
Yeah, that's one of those things as I was thinking about this fight card, Pete, is like, on paper, it's not the most exciting fight card, which seems we're getting more and more of these, but it is a way for us to make money, whether you're playing on DraftKings, maybe whether you're playing on FanDuel, maybe whether you're, laying some bets, whatever your sports book may be. But also what you can do with this fight card is, especially on the betting side, is you can tag it up with some Bellator and PFL bets. We'll talk about Bellator and PFL right at the end of the show, but I think that is a great way if you're looking from the betting side of combining these three cards. Maybe if you're looking for that 3 or 4 fighter parlay, combine these three cards together. Just don't try to get it off one card.
Yeah, exactly. And it's a weekend full of mixed martial arts, which I of course love. If you pick your spots correctly, it's going to be a profitable week, because even when you combine some of these massive favorites that you have complete faith in across several cards, you can actually find some awesome parlay pieces and build a pretty solid parlay that you're confident in.
Yeah, there's as I mentioned, we'll talk about this in the show. There are some fights lines over on the Bellator card tonight that do interest me. There is one line on Bellator, on PFL, betting underdog, that does stick out to me. But of course, there are some big betting favorites over there, PFL. But I do love this version of PFL this part of the season, because it's a winner go home for all these fighters. And so, there's going to be a situation where a fighter knows they got to go out there, get a first round finish, a second round finish to have an opportunity. And of course, if I would say coming to this PFL season that Brendan Loughlin and Chris Way would not be in the playoffs, I think a lot of people would have called me crazy, and especially when I said, and Bubba Jenkins will be the number 1 seed in the playoffs. I think a lot of people would have called you crazy. But of course, we're here to talk UFC Vegas 75. Of course, our contest on DraftKings is already live. It's right in the description of this show, so just click that link. Join our contest over there. It's a $10 entry fee. Top 3 places do play out. Always a great time. Of course, join our Discord channel as well. Totally free to join. Great conversation I have over there. Of course, I know we've already got some questions in on this fight card, so we'll get to those questions towards the end of the show. But Pete, let's get right into it. We got the main event, Marvin Vettori and Cannonier. Marvin Vettori, a minus 125 betting favorite, plus 105 for Cannonier. On DraftKings, 8,000 for Vettori, 8,200 for Cannonier. And then on FanDuel, Vettori is $19 and Cannonier is $18. Pete, what's your thoughts?
I mean, it's a close fight, right? And it's lined appropriately. You have Cannonier, who early on in his UFC career dabbled between multiple divisions. His power was shining through in a ton of different matchups, and he's become more of a methodical, smart fighter inside the octagon that's okay with going the distance. So he has good volume, good striking, still has really, really big power for the division, can defend takedowns at a decent clip. But obviously, if you're intelligent, you're not looking to stand and trade with Cannonier on the outside. Picking up a split decision over Sean Strickland, to me, is impressive. I do think that Sean Strickland is a very, very well-rounded athlete. It was a close fight, right? And split decisions, going the distance, back-to-back 5-round fights, losing to Israel Adesanya, and then that most recent one, victory over Sean Strickland. So that Cannonier can go 5. The one question is, can he keep Marvin Vettori off of him? Because Vettori should look to pressure him. As of late, though, I thought that Marvin Vettori looked pretty poor in his most recent performance against Roman Dolidze. Roman's a guy I haven't been big on, and I've picked incorrectly in a lot of his fights. But hopefully, thankfully, Marvin Vettori was able to go out there and steal a close decision over Roman Dolidze there. But it was a little interesting that you had Marvin Vettori gun shy at times and unwilling to engage in any grappling. And obviously that's because of the jiu-jitsu pedigree that Roman Dolidze has. But I don't know. I still felt like Marvin Vettori could have put a well-rounded performance out there. I thought that he probably projected to have a better striking advantage than what was shown in that contest, because Roman Dolidze made it very, very close, and he has very dangerous power. So I got to tell you, if Vettori goes out there and just strikes with Jared Cannonier, I do not like that strategy. He can win, yes, but I think that's working right in Jared Cannonier's wheelhouse. And because of that, and because of my little hesitance with his fight IQ at times, he's a smart fighter, but I feel like he can get lured into just striking, especially when he's been looking to fill that gap in his training so much. So it's a lean towards Marvin Vettori in hopes that he goes back to his wrestling slightly, and just makes it an MMA fight instead of just a kickboxing contest. Because the longer it is on the feet, the longer that you are playing with fire with Jared Cannonier on the feet. So slightly towards Vettori at 8,000. The price point at 5 rounds, it makes it kind of hard to get away from. I am going to get away from it in some of my lineups. Large majority of the field will be attracted to this fight. We just got to hope for 6 other 100-point finishers on the card, and I definitely think it's possible. It was more possible when we had 14 fights, but now we're down to 12, and slim pickings when it comes to underdogs. So I'll take a shot on Marvin Vettori at 8,000.
And I'll let everyone know right before the show, I was telling Pete that I really did not feel like this is a fight that you have to prioritize. I mean, I understand that more times than not. I mean, probably 8 out of 10 times, we're probably going to prioritize a main event, especially at this price point. But to me, like, and I'll throw this at you because I just kind of feel like this fight might play out against the fence for a lot of it.
I mean, it could. And, the issue is like, even if it does play against the cage for a little bit, you can still get some octagon control, and some control time really adds up, especially just volume, like total strikes landed, whether they're just awful strikes to be like Vettori still scored 122 in his fight against Paulo Costa. He only scored 1 out of 5 takedowns. So I'm going to get away from the fight, but I'm a little nervous to get away from it as well, just because of, 5 rounds is difficult. You know what I mean? It's very difficult to perform poorly, but sometimes you have guys, just staring in the mirror a little bit, a little gun shy, worried about getting knocked out. So it's a lower volume 5-round bout. We'll have to see. But I would say that probably in 60% of my lineups, I'll have the fight, maybe even 70%. And just to get different, I'll take 30% chances that 6 other fighters outscore the main event.
And I think when people, look at the stats, and I think they see a Sean Strickland got a takedown against Jared Cannonier, the thought process would be Marvin probably get it down. Spencer, I appreciate your question over there asking about cheap plays over there on FanDuel. There is one cheap play that I would like to get to on FanDuel. We'll talk about that as we get on. But Pete, before we move to our next fight, I'm on Twitter, and I happen to see our good old buddy Greg Bello asking if you're in Dagestan training.
Yeah, Coach Greg, you saw that? Coach Greg, we put a clip out, and my coach, Greg Rebello, said, hey, are you training in Dagestan or something? He hasn't seen me in a little bit since he's moved down to Florida. So, yeah, I think that he would be quite surprised at, A, how well I can grow a beard now, and B, Pete the Heat is not a 145er anymore. So,
yeah. If you're seeing 146 on the scale, I might start asking some questions.
I think I think one of our friends from the show messaged me on Instagram the other day. I think it's Miguel. I'll have to check, but somebody, I think it was Casey O'Neill, posted about a 135 or 145 opportunity, and I messaged him back. I was like, bro, I'd have to chop my leg off. There's no way I'm making that. So we laughed a little bit, but yeah. So it'll be 55 or 70. I'm still debating, but news will hopefully be soon.
Hopefully. Now our co-main event features a 11-1 betting favorite. That is Arman Tsarukyan taking on Joaquim Silva. Joaquim Silva is a plus 700 betting underdog. Tsarukyan 9,800 on DK, $23 on FanDuel, and then Silva is 6,400 on DK, $12 on FanDuel. Pete.
Yeah, so I mean, I think we're at historical. I think we made history where Arman Tsarukyan priced at 9,800. I don't recall anybody being that high. I think Hamza Chimaev was close to that, but 9,800 is ridiculous. With 14 fights, I think it was closer to a no-brainer to avoid him, in just hopes that, the 110, 120 is not enough, and the salary kind of boxes you out of other lineup creations. Now that we're down to 12 fights, it's a little compelling of an argument where it's like, all right, well, I know it's 9,800, But if I pick my underdogs correctly, I probably do have enough salary to come up with a balanced lineup. So obviously, I like Arman Tsarukyan here. Does he get a first or second round finish? Does he have a decisive decision? We shall see. If he wants to, he can take down Joaquim Silva and just ragdoll him. And that type of takedown ceiling is why he's priced at 9,800. 7 of 21 takedowns in a 3-round bout, most recently against Damir Ismagulov. He's attempted 12 plus takedowns numerous times in the past. I mean, he's just a fantasy darling here. But even when he scored 7 out of 21 takedown attempts against Damir Ismagulov, it went the distance and he only scored 98 fantasy points. We need him to ragdoll Joaquim Silva and en route to a finish, or just get a quick win bonus. But even then, it's kind of difficult to pay off 9,800. Joaquim Silva is just a complete. You think that he lands a lucky shot because he has one way to beating Arman Tsarukyan is by landing a powerful knockout blow. I do not see it happening. Lightning can strike though, so I mean, single digit ownership as it should be, and I actually think it's right where it should be. I mean, I'll probably throw him in like maybe 1 or 2 lineups just to get completely different, but I don't foresee him pulling off this massive upset over one of the best lightweight prospects in Arman Tsarukyan.
Yeah, I mean, I think for Tsarukyan in this matchup, there's not really a lot to gain here. I mean, obviously going out there and getting a paycheck, obviously. I mean, the only, and me and Pete were talking about this right before the show, I mean, the only thought would be is if you're going to take a flyer on Silva, is you're just hoping maybe for, he just comes out, blitzes early on and says, hey, I'm going to try and, just, knock this guy's head off. But, on Tsarukyan is much easier to get to on FanDuel at $23. At 9,800 on DK, man, you're gonna have to go dumpster diving. And look, maybe it's a Lucas Almeida, maybe it's a Nicolas Dalby, maybe it's a Dan Argueta. I mean, you're gonna have to get down there if you get to that. I mean, like, to me, if I'm hand building a GPP lineup, I don't think I get to Tsarukyan. Cash, I think, is a totally different story.
Yeah, I'm with you. I just think for cash, you take the points and you move on. I think it's kind of crazy that Tsarukyan's 6-2 in the UFC, lost the decision arguably to Mateusz Gamrot, and then his debut against Islam Makhachev. I mean, Joaquim Silva is the worst fighter that Tsarukyan has fought in the UFC. He debuted against Makhachev, OAM, Davi Hamosh, Matt Frivola, Jagos, Alvarez, Gamrot, Ismagulov, and now they give him Joaquim Silva. It seems like backwards matchmaking. But it could just be a guy, maybe nobody wants to fight Tsarukyan, and it's just somebody that said yes to the opportunity. So go out there, earn a paycheck. Don't lose stock in this fight, though. You can't just get a win. You have to get a finish, and you have to get rid of Joaquim Silva because this is a massive step down in competition, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking you up. So I feel like if you're going to have Tsarukyan, you probably didn't have to get to the main event. And so let's just say your combination was Tsarukyan, Vettori, then for your final 4 fighters, that leaves you $8,050 average remaining per player. So it just kind of gives you an idea if you are going to go that route. But Pete, you bring up a great point. Like if you're rostering Tsarukyan in a GPP, 120
has to. He has to, unless the rest of the card is like unheard of stinker DFS scores. You know what I mean? Like, because it's still all relative. And if the other 9,000 options lay an egg or they score 90 points, that 120, 115 could be enough, but it's still too much salary to eat up. You need a massive ceiling performance. So I'm completely okay with getting away from it in more than half of my lineups.
Appreciate everyone tuning in for this episode of Fight HQ as we're previewing UFC Vegas 75. Be sure to smash that thumbs up button if you happen to watch this on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. Hit that notification bell so you know, of course, we're here every Friday at 2 o'clock for the most part. Sometimes the time may differ. Pete asked me about doing a show on Thursday this week, but unfortunately, I was unable to do the show yesterday. But for the most part, we're here Fridays at 2 p.m. Of course, you can always check out our show via podcast channels, whether it's Apple, Spotify, wherever that may be, or right here on YouTube. We appreciate everyone tuning in. Next up, we got Cristian Duncan taking on another Armen. This one's Armen Petrosyan. Armen Petrosyan is a plus 126 betting underdog, minus 150 for Duncan. Over on DK, 8,600 for Duncan. Petrosyan 7,600. And on FanDuel, kind of interesting lines over here on FanDuel on this one. $16 for Duncan, $15 for Petrosyan. As I look at that on FanDuel, I'm like, oof, I think if you're playing FanDuel, I think you got to prioritize this fight. But this, I think, is interesting is, Pete, I would say this is, can Petrosyan deal with the striking of Duncan?
Yeah, so I mean, it's a tailor-made matchup for both guys. I mean, like Armen Petrosyan's constantly having to defend takedowns and keep the fight on the feet. And the same thing goes for Cristian Duncan. Everybody wants to take him to the mat, or they should work to do so, because if you stand and trade with Cristian Duncan, he's a little too diverse on the feet, and he can give you tons of problems. So very unique matchup between two strikers, and I love it. Armen Petrosyan, I don't expect him to lace up any wrestling shoes. He's only attempted one takedown, and that was against AJ Dobson. But when you get hit and you get hurt, things change, and you could look to become a wrestler in a striking matchup. So I don't foresee Cristian Duncan looking to do so against Armen Petrosyan. This is where Duncan can go out there and showcase his skills, showcase his diverse kicking attacks as well. Very, very tricky, more of a low volume but high finish upside fighter in Cristian Duncan, whereas Armen Petrosyan will probably be the more steadier of the two, throwing out more volume. He's thrown out over 200 significant strikes in 2 decisions inside the UFC. Once against AJ Dobson, he scored 77 in that unanimous decision victory. And then in his debut, he did beat Gregory Rodriguez and scored 81 because he threw 231 significant strikes. And, he's not afraid of biting down on that mouthpiece and throwing. But I will have to side with the savviness and the slickness of Cristian Duncan. I think it's a tailor-made matchup for a striker. You want this type of stuff. Yes, give me a striker. Let me go out there and prove that I'm one of the best in the world when it comes to that art. And I think Cristian Duncan's going to do so, whether he knocks him out or just picks him apart. 8,600 Cristian Duncan, I think he's a solid play. But with all that being said, sometimes volume can, just win you some rounds, and you don't find that knockout shot. So you could do worse than a Petrosyan underdog, but I foresee a Duncan finish here at 8,600.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's an interesting matchup, and I think from GPPs, I don't mind getting into it, but the one thing you do have to mention that Armen Petrosyan's got to deal with, an 8-inch reach disadvantage.
Gonna have to do something. So you either got to get on the inside, make it ugly, clinch against the cage. Anytime you clinch, right? Like we drill so much clinching and so much cage work where like you don't even mean to go for a takedown, but it just because of all the drilling you do in the training room, sometimes you start to do so. So I wouldn't be surprised if they just start to chain wrestle a little bit, and then they get back to, oh man, okay, let's strike from distance.
Next up, we got a matchup that we had a question about cheap FanDuel plays, and this was a fight that I was referring to, and that is Pat Sabatini taking on Lucas Almeida. Pat Sabatini, a minus 190 betting favorite, plus 160 for Lucas Almeida. Pat Sabatini is 9,100 on DK, $20 on FanDuel. Almeida, 7,100 on DK, $11 on FanDuel. In terms of a cheap play on FanDuel, I don't mind getting to Almeida just because, Pete, I think there are some question marks here on Sabatini.
Massive question marks. And I love Pat Sabatini, and I love that entire Renzo Gracie Philly, establishment. There's massive red flags here with Sabatini. It's about absorbing a shot. I have zero faith that he can absorb any shot. We've seen it time and time again. He gets dropped, he gets hurt, he gets wobbled. His striking is not good defensively. He does just enough to make you respect it on the feet so that it can open up an opportunity in his wrestling. Jamal Emmers nearly had him out before he leg locked him. Damon Jackson, not known for his striking at all. He has solid hands, nothing crazy. That was just a complete, I will say that was an outperformance if you've ever seen one. Damon Jackson just, fighting for more than just money in that fight, and had a ton of motivation, and, landed some shots and looked to him good against Patrick Sabatini, caught him cold. I think a guy in Lucas Almeida can do the same exact thing. I mean, if he's still alive in the second or third round and you haven't gotten him out of there, which it's very hard to do so, he's live to land a shot and knock you out. I wish his takedown defense wasn't so bad, because I would be picking him here against Pat Sabatini. But his takedown defense is very, very poor. He's okay with being on his back because he throws up submissions from his back, but against a control-oriented grappler and Patrick Sabatini, that is like the worst thing you can do. You need to get back to your feet. And even when he does get back to his feet, a lot of his regional tape is just constantly mat returns. So as much as I want to pick Lucas Almeida from the knockout upside and the red flags that Sabatini has, I'm still going to side with the grappler because I just think that he's going to outgrind Lucas Almeida and that knockout shot never comes. That doesn't mean I'm not going to avoid Lucas Almeida, though, because if he wins, I think he scores fantastic. 7,100, I don't think that he has any room to beat Sabatini in the decision. It is knockout or bust against Sabatini. And the likelihood is, I'd probably say 3 out of 10 times he lands that knockout shot against Sabatini. So I'm okay with getting to him at 7,100, but I'm expecting this fight to be a very popular play within my lineups.
And of course, as you look at ownership projections, obviously ownership projections are going to change because of the 2 fights that we've lost over the last 24 hours. I mean, Almeida is the guy that everyone's looking to. And Pete, I think it's kind of what we both talked about. You know, you have the question marks with Pat Sabatini, but man, he gets it to the ground. Yeah, he might submit him in round 1. He might submit in round 2. And look, and we both love that team up there in Philly. I mean, I'll just tell you that there's a guy on PFL we're going to talk about a little bit later, a part of that team to pay attention to as well. But in terms of an underdog, like if you're over, you know, whatever optimizer you might be using, for me, I use Fantasy Cruncher, is if I will be when I create a group of underdogs I want to get to, Almeida is going to be in that group. You know, last week I went heavy on the groups and it didn't work out for me. I just, you know, when I was, and I think we, as DFS players, we all go through this. Like, I was like, how much is too much Charles Oliveira? And like I was at one point, I was at 80% of my 20 max, and I was like,
yeah.
And you know when you see that in your optimizer, you're like, oh, is that too high? You know, and yeah I should have been 100%. I will tell you this:
which fight killed me last week? I'm trying to remember. But it was an interesting fight. I mean,
was it Nate Landwehr?
Yes, it was. It was Nate Landwehr. He screwed me. Yes, he did. You know, and exactly how Jason projected that fight. And how most people projected it. It was just a good Dan Ige performance.
If there was 10 more seconds left in that second round, he knocks him and he finishes the fight.
Yeah.
You know, because Nate did not know where he was at.
No, not at all.
That's that. How many times we see that, you know, you see that fighter walking back and it's like, uh-oh. He don't know where he's at.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, it's just, I mean, that's when you get and I find myself doing it more on pay-per-view events where I get much heavier on groups than say I do on a fight night card. Like I don't, you know, I mean, Tsarukyan's a safe pick to go all in on this week, but yeah, it's a salary issue for me in terms of that one. Next up, we got Manuel Torres taking on Nikolas Motta. Motta is a plus 155 betting underdog, minus 180 for Torres. Torres, 8,900 DK, $17 on FanDuel. And then for Nikolas Motta, 7,300 on DK, $14 on FanDuel, Pete.
Yeah, this fight's going to be fireworks. I don't see how this lightweight clash doesn't deliver. We have Nikolas Motta here, rebounding off of his debut defeat to Jim Miller, which doesn't look so bad in hindsight, and picking up a first-round victory over Cameron Van Camp through a beautiful cross hook, kind of leaped in on the hook and just dropped Cameron Van Camp en route to a first-round finish. You have Manuel Torres on the opposite side, who made quick work of Frank Camacho in round 1 en route to a first-round KO. I will tell you that historically, Nikolas Motta has been chinned and knocked out or knocked down in a ton of his fights, 4, I believe, or 3 at least. And Manuel Torres, there's no feeler punches when he's throwing. He's setting things up in a way where it's all power shots. And he just bites down on his mouthpiece and he slings it. I would probably say that he does not have the best cardio over 15 minutes because of how hard it is to just throw 100% all the time. But it's success. He finds success with it. That doesn't mean I'm not going to get to Nikolas Motta here over 15 minutes, probably in round 2 and late round 2 and round 3. He might be the better fighter, but I have to side with the guy who has absolute missiles attached to his hands, and that is Manuel Torres. And I've seen Motta chinned and hurt numerous times, and the aggressiveness of Manuel Torres at 8,900. Like for me personally, I think that it's a hell of a play, and I'm going to be targeting this fight one way or another. I think that it's a very confident lean towards Manuel Torres, but anytime people are trading leather, anything can happen with these 4-ounce gloves. So give me Manuel Torres here at 8,900 to knock out Nicolas Motta.
I would say this as looking at projections, I think he's meaning Torres. I think he's an interesting captain play or MVP play over on FanDuel if you're looking to go that route there. I do give a slight edge to Torres, but I think you broke it down there perfectly there. Next up, we got Muslim Salikhov taking on Nicolas Dalby. Salikhov is a minus 190 betting favorite, plus 160 for Dalby. Salikhov is 9,200 on DK, $17 on FanDuel, where Dalby is 7,000 on DK, $13 on FanDuel, and let me just say this, a little conversation for the show. I kind of know where Pete's thinking here.
Yes, you do. And I could be on an island. I don't know, but I'm going to be siding with Nicolas Dalby here at 7,000. It's going to be my underdog of the week. Am I expecting a finish? No, but at that price point of 7,000, it opens up a ton of opportunity salary-wise, roster construction-wise. You can get to a ton of these appealing 9,000 options, and Arman Tsarukyan's one of them. I really don't think it's a bold call, and I'm really like confused as to how wide these are. I understand that Dalby gets rocked in numerous fights, but like offensively, he has good volume. He has good takedowns. He has a well-rounded skill set where we know Muslim Salikhov is a specialist and sometimes a low volume specialist. And, against Andre Fiallo in the third round, he had only thrown 95 significant strikes throughout almost 3 rounds. You know what I mean? And it was 11 minutes, but still 95 significant strikes is nothing too impressive. Where it's like Nicolas Dalby, whether he's the better striker or not, he's the guy who's more active. He threw 248 significant strikes against Warley Alves. He landed 119. He will leg kick you. He will throw good combinations. I like the dexterity he has within his legs to go up top and sneak in some head kicks. Never mind, he has a grappling edge here against Muslim Salikhov. He really does. And I know that, Nicolas Dalby has been hurt and then finished against Jesse Ronson, and that was overturned. But offensively, he can go to the takedowns if he needs to. In his debut against Elizeu Zaleski dos Santos, he got 6 of 10 takedown attempts. He attempted 7 takedowns against Daniel Rodriguez. He didn't find any success with it, but it's something in his back pocket that Muslim Salikhov does not have. Muslim Salikhov is a specialist when it comes to striking, a liability if he does get taken down. Salikhov can get his own takedowns, but I feel like that's just trying to win a round, whereas I think Dalby can actually have success within that. And I'm going to be picking Nicolas Dalby to win a decision here at 7,000. I just think the odds are too wide. Salikhov should go out there and just put together a dominant performance given that price tag, and I just don't see how he does so. So give me Dalby here at 7,000.
Yeah, I don't mind that. I mean, I think the one thing, and you were talking about the Dalby being knocked down, I think the one fight that really sticks out to you, which kind of scared you a little bit, is that Jesse Ronson fight, which ultimately was overturned to a no contest because Jesse failed his post-fight drug test. But when you look over Muslim Salikhov, the thing that always concerns you is if you're rostering Salikhov, this has got to be knockout or bust because he's just not a volume puncher. He's a counter striker. I mean, the guy's clearly has a ton of power, but to me, Pete, that's a concern in Salikhov when I'm talking about GPP lines. Like, I understand why to get to this fight in terms of GPPs, but like I also feel like we're playing with danger here with a 9,200 fighter who just doesn't throw a ton.
Exactly, and that's I can't back a guy at 9,200 in hopes that he lands that that kill shot, because that may not come till round 3. And if it comes in round 3, you're not going to pay off that 9,200 price tag. I'd much rather just take a dog shot on Dalby, who can win a decision, who will be the better minute winner of the two. So if I'm wrong, I'm okay with it. And I just think, it's a salary, like stay away from that salary of Salikhov, whether he wins or loses.
Of course, if you want to test our knowledge against myself and Pete and the rest of our community, be sure to join that DraftKings contest. The link is below for tomorrow's contest there. $10 entry fee, and top three do pay out, so be sure to check out that. Next up, we got a matchup between Alessandro Costa and Jimmy Flick. Costa is a minus 260 betting favorite, plus 210 for Jimmy Flick. Costa 9,400 on DK, $21 on FanDuel. And then for Flick, he is 6,800 on DK, $9 on FanDuel, Pete.
So I view flyweights similar to how I view women's MMA, where I think that underdogs can pop a little bit more within those lighter divisions, just given the work rate, especially because a lot of them are so talented in the flyweight division. Jimmy Flick's a liability when it comes to striking, though. I mean, he's been knocked out numerous times. He is facing a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt in Alessandro Costa, but Costa has dynamite in his hands. So Costa will definitely be the better striker of the two, but Costa is coming off a third-round knockout to Amir Albazi, and Albazi's a hell of a lot better than Jimmy Flick, even though Jimmy Flick is a talented submission artist. So I think that this is an interesting fight to target. I wish Costa was like 8,800 because I would be truly recommending him, but 9,400 it becomes a salary play. And it's like, do I get to him or I get to somebody who's a little bit cheaper with higher upside? Jimmy Flick, if he gets your back, he can submit anybody, black belt or not. If he catches you in his triangles, he can submit you. So like I'm still gonna get to a 6,800 Jimmy Flick, but there's a point in time where Jimmy Flick didn't want to do this MMA thing anymore. And I don't like hearing a lot of fighters that have 1 foot in, 1 foot out. Especially when you're going up against somebody who can match your grappling. And in most of Jimmy Flick's success, he's kind of the better grappler in a lot of his wins. So give me Alessandro Costa 9,400 to knock out Jimmy Flick. But I'm a little confused as to how I'm going to get to the exposure. I'm not sure if I'm going to be smashing it or not. The ownership seems appropriate for about what I'm going to do for Alessandro Costa.
I think Costa is another interesting potential MVP over there at FanDuel based on what we're seeing in terms of ownership there. I mean, another thing I would put is, and I thought you broke it down perfectly talking about Jimmy Flick here, cardio concerns I have with him is if this thing hits late second, early third round and 125 pounds, man, you got to have cardio. And to me, it's just there's too many liabilities for me to have trust in Jimmy Flick. Like you mentioned about it wasn't that long ago this guy retired because he didn't like the pay, and then he came back. And to me, it's submission or bust.
Yeah, I'm with you. And that's submission or bust, similar to Lucas Almeida, who's KO or bust. So I'll probably treat them similar. And they're both pretty close in salary. $300 separates the two. But you have to think of, if these fighters win, do they score well? And I think it's yes. If they win, I think that they have to get a finish.
Yeah, and especially if you want to get away from, say, the ownership of the main event and co-main event, I think this is a way to try to differentiate your roster when you're playing in those big entry fields. Next up, we got Cristian Quinonez taking on Kang. Kang, a plus 125 betting underdog, minus 150 for Quinonez. Quinonez is 8,800 on DK, $16 on FanDuel. And for Kang, he is 7,400 on DK, $14 on FanDuel, Pete.
Yeah, so I think Kyung Kang is going to be a very popular underdog, and I was a little surprised to see he was the underdog because I just by name value I didn't remember who Cristian Quinonez is, and then I went back and I started watching tape, and I said, okay, I remember this kid. So Cristian Quinonez at 8,800 is interesting. I don't necessarily know if I love the price at all because I don't foresee him picking up an early finish over Kyung Kang. He has really, really aggressive and strong striking. And I actually think that he has okay takedown defense and submission skills, but obviously he likes to win his fights on the feet. Constantly his opponents are looking to take him to the mat. And if Kyung Kang is smart, he's going to look to take him to the mat. My issue with Kyung Kang is that, sometimes depending on the matchup, he's okay with just striking. And if he doesn't find early success with the takedowns, he can somewhat abandon it. And I think this fight's going to come down to damage versus control. Kyung Kang is going to take down Cristian Quinonez, but I don't know if he can keep him down. and Quinonez will be the bigger guy. He will be the stronger of the two. May not have the most skill on the mat like Kang is nice and savvy. Cristian Quinonez is good. I've seen him in some of the deepest arm bars and submissions, and he's worked his way out. So he's clearly elevated that game and developed his ground game to a point. I'm picking Cristian Quinonez to win a decision here over Kang, and the reason being is when I go and I look at a lot of Kang fights, fighters that are okay in my eyes, he's going split decisions to. Lee Ping-Wan, Brandon Davis, Ricardo Ramos, Michinori Tanaka. I mean, some of those are quite some time ago, but if you are notorious for being in close fights, I'm probably going to go the other way, especially if I have a lean or a read within my fight film watching. So I'm going to be picking Cristian Quinonez here at 8,800 to win a decision, but I don't hate the dog shot at Kang at 7,400.
Yeah, I mean, it is one of those dogs I do want to take a shot on here. But and in full disclosure, I haven't even tried to make rosters yet. So that'll be probably tonight while I'm watching Bellator. It's probably when I'll be making my rosters and reserving all the contests here tonight. Next up, we got Denise Bondar taking on Carlos Hernandez. Bondar is a minus 130 betting favorite, plus 110 for Hernandez. Bondar 7,900 on DK, $15 on FanDuel. Hernandez 8,300 on DK, $15 on FanDuel. And I think no matter whether we're talking about DraftKings or FanDuel, Pete, I think this is a fight we got to take a lot of consideration for. But high volatility, would that be about the right way to describe this one?
Yeah, I mean, untrustworthy, characteristics a part of both fighters, right? Like, you don't know how Dennis Bondar is going to rebound off of that gruesome arm break against Malcolm Gordon. He was caught in an armbar early on. It must have tweaked some, pretty bad. And then a couple throws later, planting on that hand, that elbow just went. So looking to see how he rebounds. And Dennis Bondar offensively is good. Like, he'll go to the takedowns pretty well. And if he's smart, he should be looking to do so against Carlos Hernandez. Look to take him down. Don't stand on the feet with him. Try to work towards a submission victory. I think that's going to be hard to come by, though. And Carlos Hernandez out of my friend's camp at Valley Flow Fighting System, I really think that my buddy Mike Valley is going to have Carlos Hernandez nice and sharp. That entire team, we've seen them become a nice staple, and they just always are fight ready everywhere, like in all areas of the game. Carlos Hernandez wasn't slick enough to deal with the jiu-jitsu skills of Alan Nascimento, but Nascimento is a very, very talented fighter, and I don't view Dennis Bondar on the same level as Nascimento. Yes, regionally, Bondar has a great record, but the strength of schedule is pretty soft, if you want my honest opinion. So Carlos Hernandez here at 8,300, he might be one of the most interesting plays for me, and I might go overweight to him just because Bondar on the feet leaves his chin straight up in the air sometimes. He keeps his head on the center line, and I think a guy in Carlos Hernandez can drop him, rock him en route to possibly finishing him and just a decisive victory. But it's a salary play for me at 8,300, and I'm okay with getting a little different. So give me Carlos Hernandez to win a decisive victory here, and especially at the ownership that I'm seeing right now, I'm going to be a lot more than that. I'm going to be a little bit more aggressive than what the entire field is doing in hopes that he can find a finish, but the most likely outcome is a Carlos Hernandez decision win.
I was talking to a regional matchmaker this week, and we were talking about these fighters who have these great records, but the strength of competition may not be the best. And this matchmaker said, he goes, it's usually one or two situations. It's either A, no one will fight them, and so they've just to get fights, they have to take these fights, or B, they're extremely selective in who they fight. And there was one fighter's name that came up, and he just said, he goes, I just don't like trying to match him because I know half the offers he's going to decline because he doesn't like the matchup. I mean, that's just kind of, that's the reality of the regional scene. That's why sometimes, like on Tapology, I think for the most part, I probably overanalyze that a little bit too much, unless you kind of know whether or not that fighter is what's kind of going on. Like, I'll tell you, I was talking to Tisha, who's going to be the main event of the upcoming Unified card against Eric Shelton, the UFC vet. And he told me 60 fighters have turned down a fight against him this year.
Yes, that's crazy. And it's also due to the region too, right? Like good records in certain areas of the world are not the same across the board.
Mhm.
You see anybody coming out of Alaskan FC, and it's kind of just like it's
I'm
like
just
it's a softball matchup. You know what I mean? And for the most part, it's
Pete.
just certain areas of the world are a little behind when it comes to the growth of mixed martial arts.
Look, if I came to you and said, "Hey, Pete, man,
Give me
so
a title. Give me a title fight down
I
in
go,
Alaska FC.
hey, man, we got a title fight. It's at 55. We got to make 55 in 6 days, but it's Alaska FC."
Shit, I'm making it. I'm making it one way or another. I'm making it one way or another. But yeah, exactly. It's you don't know the ins and outs of the management, the matchmaking, or anything. But if you are wise to the game, you can kind of spot little things about records. And Bondar, especially like for me, the craziest part is like when people go backwards, like they have like a massive step up in competition, and then just to stay active, they fight a guy. Say they picked up a victory of a guy who's 15-8 or something. It's like, oh, that's a good win. Okay, that should possibly be the next step into the bigger show. And then like 3 months go by and they get a little impatient and they take a fight against a guy who's 2-0 or 2-1. It's like,
Yeah.
what the hell are you doing? Like, to me, that's the backwards growth. And, you can spot the inefficiencies within matchmaking and also within mixed martial artist records.
There's somebody I know in the industry, and this was years ago. He came up with a line: "You got cans, we got hands."
There we go. Yep, I like that.
we all, and for people in the industry, we know it. We know what tomato can means. Coke can mean. We know it all means there. Next up, we got a female matchup. We got the underdog here at plus 190, and Gabriel Fernandez take on Tereza Bleda. Bleda is a minus 230 betting favorite, 9,500 DK, $22 over there on FanDuel. And Fernandez, she's 6,700 on DK, $10 on FanDuel. Pete.
Yeah, so I mean, like, I understand the 9,500 price tag on Tereza Bleda, because that is like where I view her ceiling within this matchup, because Gabriela Fernandez in her most recent fight against Jasmine Jasudavicius, she looked like a fish out of water on the mat. And Jasmine Jasudavicius, rightly so, looked good last weekend against Miranda Maverick, and she was able to go out there and put good wrestling, good top control, and just kind of outwork her opposition. Gabriela Fernandez is a very physical fighter who has good striking. But I saw elementary mistakes when she was on her back. Like, you don't see fighters, you know, looking for underhooks, or you don't see them doing any of the proper things to get back to their feet, never mind guard retention. And I just didn't see it. So Gabriela Fernandez for me is a massive red flag. Now, on the opposite side, Tereza Bleda possesses some of the similar skills that Jasmine Jasudavicius has. There is going to be room for improvement in both ways. Like, Tereza Bleda did just fight Natalia Silva, who is possibly on her way to fighting for the title. The way that she is just going through her opposition, Tereza Bleda goes out there and just completely, taxes her gas tank. Like, she'll put the pedal to the metal, attempt takedowns, ground and pound submissions, everything. But I think the longer the fight goes, she is a complete cardio liability. So 9,500, she can go out there and ground Gabriela Fernandez, mat return her, ground and pound her, work her way towards a submission or ground and pound finish. Absolutely 9,500. I can also see the physically imposing Gabriela Fernandez fighting for underhooks. That has got to be one of the most important developments within this fight camp for Gabriela Fernandez, is drilling underhooks constantly, because you can defend a lot of takedowns in MMA, especially if you have a good underhook game against the cage. It's imperative you have to be fighting for underhooks. And I actually think that she can surprise some people here at 6,700. I told you I'm going to be prioritizing this fight. I'm going to be projecting a Tereza Bleda ground and pound or submission, but I just have a terrible feeling that Gabriela Fernandez is either A, going to knock out Tereza Bleda, or B, going to do enough to win a matchup on the feet en route to a decision win at 6,700. So with all that being said, I'm going to prioritize this fight for a lot of my lineups. And I'm okay with being wrong, because I just think that one way or another, we're going to have a necessity, a part of our lineup where you're going to need to get to this score.
Yeah, it's once again, I mean, we got some high price 9,000 options. I know we got a question where I answered in the show about ranking these fighters, but yeah, that's going to be kind of the trick with this one. Next up, we got Ronnie Lawrence taking on Dan Argueta. Ronnie Lawrence is a minus 190 betting favorite, plus 160 for Argueta. Lawrence $8,700 on DK, $19 on FanDuel. Argueta $7,500 on DK, $12 on FanDuel, and of course, Ronnie Lawrence. It's been a year since we've seen him in inside competition. Of course, that was that loss to Kakramanov, who just took him down at will after he had been a takedown artist. And Daniel Argueta has shown the ability to get the fight to the ground, Pete.
Yeah, interesting fight, man. Really interesting fight, and one where I'm kind of scratching my head all week because Ronnie Lawrence is just fantasy goodness. Like 134 against Vince Cachero, 131 against Mana Martinez. The performance against Said Yokob Kakramanov leaves me with a question: is how good is Ronnie Lawrence? Like, because he looked like defensively he didn't know how to defend takedowns, or he had a bad weight cut, or Kakramanov is just that damn good and strong. I do believe that Kakramanov is a very talented fighter, so it's a good loss if you want to look at it like that. It's not like he lost to somebody who's less, kind of below him within the UFC. It's just that Ronnie Lawrence is usually a volume guy, and he was getting outworked at his own game. So that's kind of the most fascinating part about that. I will say that the better minute winner in this matchup between Lawrence and Argueta will be Ronnie Lawrence, but that doesn't mean that he will be effective. Activity does not always mean effectiveness, and Argueta possesses a pretty powerful left hand and good wrestling in his own right. So I'm very, very interested with this matchup. I told you pre-show that I might even get to 100% of this fight, just one way or another.
Mm-hmm.
Either Lawrence is going to ground Argueta over and over, and we're going to see Argueta get back to his feet, which could really boost the totals of Ronnie Lawrence. Or we see Lawrence on the outside showcasing that karate-esque type of striking. I know it's like a work in progress. It's not horrible. It's okay. But you can clearly see that he's not natural at doing so. And he's a liability to get knocked down on his butt. We've seen it numerous times. I got questions about his chin. Argueta, on the flip side, I can actually see him, if he gets on top position, he has very, very powerful elbows, good wrestling in his own right, and a powerful left hand. So I love this fight from a DFS aspect. I'm going to get to it a ton. I don't think that their wrestling is going to negate enough where there's not going to be fantasy points. I think it's going to be they both find success and then they both get back to their feet. So I think that one way or another, we're going to have a great performance. I'm going to be I really want to pick Dan Argueta, but I'm going to be leaning with the activity of Ronnie Lawrence at 8,700. All in all, don't care who I get in my lineups.
I was literally just starring fires I'm going to pick for our straight up fight picks. And yeah, it's a tough underdog week that you feel a lot of confidence in. Kevin asked about, was Kakramanov cut? Yes, he was. More of the story.
Yeah, exactly. It's not exactly because he wasn't cut for skills.
It wasn't that. It wasn't that. I've heard some things, but yeah, it's sometimes there's more things that go involved into why the UFC decides that they no longer want to be in X fighters business. But let's move on to our first fight of the night. That'll be Modestas Bukauskas taking on Zach Polga. Bukauskas is a minus 200 betting favorite, plus 170 for Polga, and over on DK, Bukauskas $9,000, $18 on FanDuel, and then Polga $7,200 on DK, $11 on FanDuel. Pete.
I'm snickering because it's the first fight of the night, and Jason likes Bukauskas and Polga, so I don't really know how his exposure is going to go. I will tell you that it's a compelling light heavyweight bout. Bukauskas is clearly hitting a stride where, outside the UFC, he worked his way back in, took an opportunity against Tyson Pedro, who was like the boogeyman. Nobody wanted to fight him. And then he was just a little bit better, a little sharper than Tyson Pedro, who gassed over 15 minutes. So you have Bukauskas on a little bit of a heater here at 9,000. Zach Polga, a guy who is supposed to win the Ultimate Fighter. And then, in my opinion, that's kind of like my impression of the season. He looked like he was the better fighter throughout the entire season. Got knocked out against Muhammad Usman, who has power, but not really known for knocking people out, more so of just grinding them and working for takedowns. He rebounded okay against Jordan Wright, but I didn't think that was a good performance. I thought that he should have knocked out Jordan Wright. what he did what he did in that matchup was attempt 6 takedowns. So it seemed like no matter my belief or my impression of Jordan Wright, people inside the cage are respecting him enough where they are shooting takedowns because they don't like what they're seeing. They may not be comfortable with the stance or whatnot. I think that Bukauskas at 9,000 is interesting. He has power. He has the skills. He has been knocked out in his own right. I'm going to be picking 9,000 Bukauskas. I don't like the salary by any means. But like maybe he can find the chin of Zach Palga. If Muhammad Usman was able to, and Bukauskas, I'm leaning more towards that this is just going to go the distance, and Bukauskas is going to get his hand raised.
Look, I'm still a believer that Palga was the most talented mixed martial artist on that season, the Ultimate Fighter. Yeah. But of course, he was a 205er fighting at heavyweight, which, I mean, look, we see that happen a lot in the Ultimate Fighter where a fighter goes up a weight class because they view it as their best way to get into the UFC. This is one of those fights that I don't have a lean either way. I mean, if I was going to lean, I would lean Bukauskas. I think that you've seen the changes that he's made from his first stint in the UFC now into the second stint. But, Palga's just a guy that, and Pete, this, like you talk to people in the industry that you really value their opinion. I can't tell you how many people were so high on this kid. I mean, high on this kid. And if he doesn't get a win tomorrow night, his days in the UFC might be over.
That's another thing that we have to kind of decipher, and it's difficult for us and just for everybody in general. When so many people are going to bat for somebody and you hear this name over and over and over, it makes you wonder, are they going to bat for this person because they believe in their skills so much, or just because that person is such a great teammate that they, you know what I mean? Like they've helped so many other people, like Curtis Blades, like Zach Palga's done a lot in the training room. I've heard great things, but is it more about just, that team type of environment, or is it actually due to his skills?
But when I hear it from people who are not associated with that fighter, not associated with that gym, that's where I think I put more credence into it. Like if it's someone from that gym telling me about him, like, hey man, this guy is like killer in the gym. Okay, all right. But then like if I'm sitting there talking to somebody in South Florida about a fighter in Colorado, I take a lot of weight into that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. That makes a ton of sense, and I would agree with that. And that's where you kind of just have to see through all the BS sometimes and just like the loyalty, because everybody's going to talk up their friends, and we've seen like Nate Diaz go to bat for, who is it? What was that kid's name?
Avila.
The kid's bad. That kid's bad.
Yeah, I mean, how many times? I mean, and look, there's, and this is why I was having a conversation with our fighter because we were talking about betting odds, and he's like, I just don't understand how these betting odds kind of come about, and it's just like sometimes there's things we see on film on the regional scene, and we're like, okay, we think this thing's going to correlate. Then you get to the UFC or Bellator, PFL, and they just falter on the main stage for whatever reason. Maybe it's because look, there are times that definitely I think fighters don't test themselves on the local scene coming up. That's why I put more weight into like an LFA promotion, because I know in LFA they're not putting together gimme fights. You go to LFA, you're going to fight tough competition. That's why I think that's one of those things when you're looking at regional scene tape, I think you do have to look at the promotion that they're fighting for and maybe have a little bit of understanding about that. But let's get into our straight up fight picks here. Main event. This is another one I'm going back and forth on, but give me Marvin Vettori.
Yeah, Marvin Vettori lean for me.
Clear Tsarukyan in the co-main.
Tsarukyan.
I'm going to go Duncan, but I think Petrosyan gets it done via decision.
Duncan.
This is another underdog I really want to get to, but it's the takedown liabilities of why I have to go with Sabatini. But man, it's a volatility fight.
100%. I'm still gonna go Sabatini, but for DFS, you already know what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I'll go Manuel Torres.
Torres.
Another one. This is another one I keep going back and forth on. I'm gonna go Salikhov, but
no problem.
I don't trust it.
Yeah, Dalby's been dropped a lot, so I get it. But I'm still gonna go with Dalby here as the underdog.
Costa, and he may be one of my guys I have the most faith in here.
I like Costa as well.
I like Kang for DFS, but a straight up pick, I'll go Quinonez.
Yeah, Quinonez for me.
I gotta go Carlos Hernandez. I can't trust Bondar.
Yep, Hernandez.
Bleda's gonna be the pick for me.
Yep.
I'm gonna go Ronnie Lawrence, but man, I'm a little concerned. A little concerned.
Yeah, Ronnie Lawrence for me as well.
And then opening fight, give me Bukakis.
Yeah, Bukauskas for me as well.
Let's hit up some questions over from Discord that came in a little bit before the show. Tristan saying rank the 9K options and best takedown upside, also best leverage play. So we have 6 9,000 fighters this week, Pete. So we got Tsarukyan, Sabatini, Salikhov, Costa, Bleda, and Bukakis. I mean, look, I think from ranking them just from a GPP option, Tsarukyan's got to be number one, but because of that price point, we need 120 points. So I think you got to put a little bit there. When it comes to the rest of the 9K options, my next one would be Costa as my number 2.
Agree.
Now, this is where I think it becomes really interesting of where you go 3 through 6. Do you have like, if I was going to say my number 3, I think it's either Sabatini or Tereza Bleda.
Yeah, man. I think the upside is with Bleda, like massive upside, but I just don't trust that division. I'm going to go Sabatini.
Yeah, I mean, I would go, to me, it would be Sabatini 3, Bleda 4, number 5 would then be Bukakis, and 6 would be Salikhov.
Mm-hmm.
Now, and also Tristan was asked about ranking it from a takedown upside. Obviously, I would eliminate Salikhov from that equation. I would eliminate Bukakis from those situations. I don't see either one of those guys really going for takedowns.
I don't see Costa either. He shouldn't. Jimmy Flick's really good on the mat, so he shouldn't. Comes down to Tsarukyan, Sabatini, and Bleda. Tsarukyan clear 1 for me. It's Blade. You can't go wrong with Bleda or Sabatini from what their oppositions have shown in fight film. But like, I clearly have more faith in Renzo Gracie Philly, so I'm going to be leaning Sabatini over Bleda.
Yeah, no question. Best leverage plays. I mean, look, there's some dart throws to throw out there. I want to see what the Cristian Duncan ownership ultimately ends up looking like. Some other Almeida. I mean, he's going to be highly owned, so it's not really a leverage spot there. Maybe Dalby is a little bit of a leverage spot play. Hernandez, I think it would be another one to throw out there, and then probably the first fight of the night. I mean, I don't think that I don't think
glad you said that.
I don't think the first fight of the night is getting enough total ownership between both sides, and that's one of the things that I have really been incorporating into my line of construction is, when I get to Saturday and I'm pulling up the ownership projections, I'm going, okay, what is the fight that is combined getting less than 35 total percent?
Exactly, Jason.
And when we're looking at these, like I'm a big 20 max player. So to me, where can I potentially find leverage? And I think that's one of the things. And, to me, ownership projections is just a tool that I'm using, to help create my mindset. But that is a big thing I'm doing now is what is a fight that's just being underowned?
Yeah. And I'm so glad, because I was really going to say that, because I thought that I was the only one who noticed that. But like, it is the first fight of the night's massively going under owned to a point now where, me, I'm just so damn risky that I might like super smash that and just get to an ungodly amount of Bukauskas and Pauga. The most likely situation is that it goes 15, but I have question marks on both of their chins, and there is some sneaky takedown upside if Pauga wants to lace up some wrestling shoes. So I might have to do it, especially in the 20 max.
Value plays underneath 8K on DraftKings. In terms from a GPP aspect, Lucas Almeida, but like we've talked about the fact of, the defensive liability of getting taken down. Motta, I don't mind getting there just because of how that fight could play out, even though I do like Torres in that situation. And outside of that, maybe Argueta would probably be another one that I would throw in there.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, for like the underdogs that I'm taking shots on, going to be Argueta, Dalby. You already know I'm going to take a ton of Dalby, Zach Pauga, and also Gabriela Fernandez.
Spencer over in the chat asked about favorite cheap plays on FanDuel. I think Almeida is one of them, but I also say that Bondar Hernandez both priced at $15 on FanDuel. I think that is a fight that you definitely have to take a look at there. Also, Kevin says, he goes, I'm doing a 20 max this week. My core I think I'm going with is Lawrence, Vettori, Torres, and mixing and matching other three thoughts. Then Andrew says, think we could see 3-4 dogs make the optimal. I think 2 to 3 dogs is probably, Andrew, the way to go to optimal. Kevin, in terms of your 20 max, I don't mind that core of those top 3. I don't know if I would make Vettori a core play for me in a 20 max.
Yeah, it's really tough, and we talked about it, like exposures for the main event, but like we just need 6 fighters to outperform that main event. I really think it's possible, and especially in even contest, you can really see them underperform given their norm because they're not in an easy matchup.
And then another comment was Armen can cost too much. Yeah, I mean, it's a high price tag on DK, no question about it. But, I mean, there is a reason he's a 11-1 betting favorite, and it will likely come off as even a bigger betting favorite. I just think that, if Joaquim's going to pull it off, it's him going out there and just coming out firing. Someone asked about also any PFL and Bellator plays tonight. Here's what I like on Bellator. I like 3 favorites. Patricio Pitbull, -165. Corey Anderson, -175. If you want to get a little bit better, I would look at Corey Anderson wins via decision. And also, I like Daniel James as a pick'em. As he's -110 on PFL. We talk about the Renzo Gracie team over there. Patrick Brady, heavyweight, he's +230. That is my underdog over there on PFL tonight.
I like it. I will say that there was a couple names that I was looking at. Cody Law was a 4-1 favorite. Now is boosted to 7-1 favorite. I still believe in the skill set and the team. I think it's probably an easier matchup than what he's had. Ante Delia has been boosted to -500 favorite. I'm fine with that. I like him. Larissa Pacheco has gone from a -700 to a -1100 favorite. Obviously, I like those, and those are huge, huge favorites. But if you piece them together, they should all win. There was somebody else I was interested in. And back on Monday, Ramazan Kurmagomedov was -400. He's now down to -190. So something must have happened. Some money has come on Jaleel Willis. So I'll probably remove him from my parlay. But it's going to be massive favorites whenever you get into Bellator and PFL and picking dog shots. So I'm okay with it. Law, Pacheco, Delia, crazy, crazy odds on all that. But you get almost 2-1 odds between those 3.
Yeah, I mean, Kevin asked for best 3-pick parlay. I will tell you this right now. Here's the one thing I've learned about betting on Bellator. Don't bet against Patricio Pitbull. Sergio Pettis is returning from a major knee injury. Now he's into this one. Now, of course, he's at 35. First time
35.
Fighting at 35. But to me, I would start a 3-pick parlay with Patricio Pitbull, and then I would probably but my other 2 legs, I would go over to the UFC, and I would probably go Manuel Torres at -180, and then I would probably go Alessandro Costa as the 3rd leg.
What are you going to do when Sergio Pettis ruins your parlay and just lands that shot because Patricio Pitbull is down to 35? I mean, he could do it. The skills of Pitbull exceed Sergio Pettis. I just don't, me, I don't like it when fighters go down when they're had such success.
And he's 30. Oh, he just doesn't want to go to 35.
He ain't going to 25, does he?
He's already talking about he wants to go down to 25 and
I love Pitbull.
And of course, they're introducing a 125-pound title at the end of next month. Horiguchi's fighting another Ryzen fighter. So I would think if you're Bellator, they would probably all be about Horiguchi and Pitbull. And I will say this, I was actually pretty floored when I saw Scott Coker confirm Bellator's for sale. I was actually surprised that he admitted that.
I like Scott Coker. And obviously I have roots tied to Bellator, but I'm not signed by them. I want to be. So I want them to continue to grow. I don't want them to go nowhere other than up. And I think a merge would be great. I don't think it's likely to happen, but we'll see.
It would be the best thing for mixed martial arts if the PFL and Bellator merged. But if they merge, you got to have fight people running the promotion.
Agree, 100%. You can't have these other companies. You know what I mean? Like you need Coker. Yeah, you do.
Yeah, Bellator has fight people running that promotion. I'll tell you this about PFL. I don't know this. I had someone reach out to me over the past couple of days, and they had said to me, Jason, I always thought you were kind of a hater on this whole PFL broadcast watching live suck because of the pacing. He goes,
horrible.
He's like, dude, I watched it live. I turned it off. I just couldn't take this whole wait time between fights. I go, told you, bro. Told you. It is not fun to watch live.
When a purist like us is telling you that they need to change something, you know what I mean? Like, you need to change something because we're very, very flexible. When you got us sitting there going, what the hell? Come on. Like, speed this up.
But, of course, we got these fights coming up here tomorrow. Of course, be sure to join that DraftKings contest. Join our Discord channel, totally free to join. Of course, we'll be back here next week. We got the fight card in Jacksonville, so in front of fans. And I am loving this main event. Josh Emmett, Ilya Topuria. Oh, bring on the violence, Pete.
Yeah, it's going to be a hell of a fight card. Excited for that one. Excited to make some money for this. Make sure before you guys head out, you hit that like button for us, subscribe to the channel. Help us get to our new goal of 1,000 subscribers. That's still been our goal. We're still slowly approaching it. We really appreciate you guys joining the Discord in our description below. And good luck to you guys on Saturday.
Look, I'm always down for fights in front of fans. Get out of the Apex, please. Get in front of fans, man. It's oh man, some of these.
I was looking at tickets for UFC Boston, and because my buddies and I, we wanted to go, bro. You know me, I'm down to spend money, bro. These people, the UFC has lost their damn mind. I'll stay home.
Okay,
I'll stay home. No problem at all.
When they did the pay-per-view in Miami, the last row in top of the building, row.
Yep.
The face was $600.
Okay, I'm telling you right now. Okay, so they're almost $1,000 for upper bowl at UFC Boston. That is ridiculous. I'm not spent. My buddy's like, come on, let's go. I'm like, dude, I've seen a ton of fights. There ain't no way I'm sitting up top. I'm sitting lower bowl, if anything, and that's going to run me almost $2,000.
Here's where I think, and this would be my advice to anyone who's going to a UFC, Bellator, PFL type show. Floor seats are the worst goddamn seats. I'm just telling you.
I like the slight incline on the bottom row, though. I think on the bottom bowl.
First bowl, midway up.
Yeah, 100%.
That's where you want to be.
Exactly.
Because you want to get like you're just above that top of that cage looking down. Mm-hmm. Those to me are the best seats in the house.
Agree. That's what I want. But that's going to be $1,500 to almost $2,000, and that's crazy.
You got to take down an attorney.
Here we go. Here we go tomorrow. And that could be taken down because of finding a fight that's going under-owned, and that first fight of the night could be it. We'll see.
I'm just saying, if you take down an attorney, I have a feeling Bree's going to yell at you because you woke Leah up.
Yeah. Exactly. I got other things to spend money on. So, but yeah.
Yeah.
We appreciate you guys checking us out. It's always a blast doing these shows. Help us hit our goal of 1,000 subscribers, and we'll continue to be back here every week. We do it because we love it and appreciate everybody's support.
And that's going to wrap it up for this episode of the Fight HQ preview for UFC Vegas 75. As Pete said, we'll be back here next week. Get you ready for UFC Jacksonville.